China girl. I feel a wreck without my little China girl. I hear her heart beating loud as thunder, so the stars crashing. I'm a mess without my little China girl. Wake up in the morning, where's my little China girl? I hear hearts beating loud as thunder. I saw the stars crashing down. I feel tragic like I'm Marlon Brando when I look at my China girl. And I could pretend nothing really meant too much when I look at my China girl. Just like a sacred cow, visions of swastikas in my head, plans for everyone. It's in the way of my eyes. My little China girl, you shouldn't mess with me. I'll ruin everything you are. You know, I'll give you television, I'll give you eyes of blue, I'll give you a man who wants to rule the world. And when I get excited, my little China girl says, oh baby, just you shut your mouth. She says, she says, she says, excited, my little China girl says, oh baby, just you shut your mouth. She says, she says, to discover a little something to make me sweeter. Oh, baby, refrain from breaking my heart. I'm so.
Hello. Okay, hi. How is everybody today? Doing okay? It's Monday. Woo! My name's Lindsay. I use she, her pronouns. I'm here to introduce today's Kindred Spirits event. Just so you know, we do have some future events this week. On Wednesday, November 1st, there will be presentations from the Native American Student Success and Achievement Club, or NASA, so please come to that one. Same time, same place. We also have an event next week on November 10th in honor of Veterans Day. So that's what we have going on. Today, we have Amanda Langdon here, who is the Access Service Librarian and Campus OER lead. And the topic today is Impact of Textbook Costs and OER on Campus, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives, and Social Justice Initiatives. So if everyone could give me a round of applause for Amanda Langdon here, that'd be great.
Thank you so very much, Lindsay. So I've been interested in open educational resources, or OER, for the last 5 years, and I run periodic surveys. I try to do one at the start of every semester to see what our students here at ASU have to say about the impact of textbook costs on them in particular. So this is data from the fall 2023 survey that was run in September. And I just feel like information from our students is more relevant and interesting than information broadly from students in Florida or somewhere like that where you get published information. So the first question I like to ask on the surveys, and I've gotten pretty consistent answers over the last 3 or 4 years, what extent do you experience stress when purchasing course materials like textbooks and homework platforms and things like that? And about 93% of our students, at least sometimes, if not frequently or always, experiencing stress. So if you think about what impact stress has on academic performance and just life quality, that's a very high percentage of students who are under a lot of stress, and just in addition to daily life, that's just inspired by trying to get into and get through their classes. So that kind of sums up how a lot of students seem to feel with textbook costs. I did ask for 1 or 2 sentences in this last survey of what is the impact textbook costs have on you personally. And, you know, there's some hard hitters in here. More money or credit card debt to afford things. It's hard to put more into funds for needed resources when I'm already laying thousands into school. I have to work multiple jobs, sacrificing study time. And even just as I was putting together and practicing this presentation, a student reached out to me and asked for an audio version of a text, presumably with some visual challenges. And the answer I had to give was because of traditional textbook publishers' DRM, digital rights management softwares, a lot of times those books cannot be turned into audio with things like screen readers because of copyright concerns and plagiarism issues. So, you know, if our mission is to include, provide equitable access to education for all, particularly for diverse and historically underserved groups, we need to help students with visual challenges or just anyone who needs or wants an audio format to get their materials. This was an increase from the last time I asked this question. Do you have consistent, reliable access to the tech device, such as a computer, tablet, or phone, and internet when not on campus? And we're looking at, 15% of our students do not have that. So when the digital rights management of ebooks, which are usually cheaper than print textbooks, when those softwares do not allow for downloading, because if you download, you might share, that means that students have to basically stream their textbooks. And if they don't have the access, the internet, to do that, that's really problematic. We're limiting, we're telling students they have to stay on campus instead of commuting home or working other jobs in order to access their course materials. So I looked at the intersectionality, as Kindred Spirits this year's theme is, between access, reliable internet and technology, and the impact of stress levels. And about 88% of our students who don't have digital access are frequently or always stressed. So the ones who are the most socioeconomically challenged are also the ones who are the most stressed out about it, which makes sense. There's an author, Grimaldi, I've got the citation if anyone's interested. His access hypothesis, very roughly summed up, is that good enough may be within reach, whereas the best gold standard textbook, if no one can afford to buy it, how can it be a gold standard? What is the gold standard measuring? It cannot be student success. So I asked the question, how many courses have you not registered for because you couldn't afford textbooks or course materials? And about a quarter of our students are not registering for courses, anywhere from 1 to 4 or more courses, because of self-reported textbook costs. So if we're talking the big buzzwords on campus, retention, recruitment, engagement, if we had, maybe 23% is a pie in the sky number, but if we had 10% greater course enrollment, what would that do for this institution? How would that help both the students and the campus more broadly? How many courses have you dropped or withdrawn from because you couldn't afford the materials? Again, not quite as high number, 14%, but what if we had another 10% enrollment based on that? The students that see through their courses instead of having to drop or withdraw. And the last one, how many courses have you failed because you couldn't afford the materials? What if we had 15% or 10% or 5% greater success rate from our students? Granted, these numbers are self-reported. There's probably a handful of students who just, didn't care about the class this semester, just flaked off, tanked it, and blamed the textbook cost for it. But there are also a lot of students, as the indicates where I have the what Grizzlies have to say. They are trying, they are working hard at this, they are busting their backsides, and we're not necessarily meeting them halfway with some of these things. So stress and drop, fail, withdrawal rates, or degrade, fail, withdrawal rates, how does stress impact those failures? 97% of those who either didn't register for, failed, withdrew from a class report high or very high stress. Pretty obvious that they want to make this happen. They want their education to succeed, but they're struggling and it's not working and they are stressed out about it. So if you think about the failure to register, dropping or failing courses, that leads to delayed graduation, larger student loan debt, wasted money. If they didn't drop before that drop deadline and they just sort of withdrew from the class and stopped showing up because they couldn't keep up, they've paid for those classes and they still have to take them again later. And that leads to more and more student loan debt. That's such a huge topic right now. I think we all probably feel that. And if we can find a way to diminish the student loan debt that students are suffering under right now, that would be pretty incredible, I think. So how does access to technology impact the drop, fail, withdraw rates? For students who have tech access issues, only 40% of their courses were successfully registered for or completed. That means about 60% of their course load was a struggle. They struggled to register, they struggled to pass, they struggled to stay in the class. And those are the students who are most socioeconomically disadvantaged, the ones that we purport to serve at Colorado's first Hispanic serving institution. So changing topics slightly, I looked at how minority students access information, have access to textbook information. And one of the challenges with this, I will say, I am not a statistician at all. I was looking through rows of columns of spreadsheet information and counting manually. So I did my very best to be as honest with this as I could, not misrepresent any information. But since I did allow students to select more than one ethnic background, it was a challenge having one response with the stress level and 3 responses with their ethnicity. So I promise I did my best with this. About 15% of all respondents indicated that they had tech issues, access issues with technology or internet. 24% of those identify as Black, whereas only 9% of our campus respondents overall identify as Black. So that is something that is impacting our Black students a lot more heavily. The same is true with the Latina students. 42% of those experiencing technical challenges are Latinas, as opposed to 29% in our overall population. And that is inverse, where students identify as white or a large percentage of other ethnic backgrounds. So here I asked the question, if you rented, did you wish you could have kept the material for future reference or professional use? And students who wanted to keep the text but couldn't afford to was nearly 55%. These are upper class students, upper class undergraduates, juniors, seniors, and fifth year. And about 37% of undergrads overall wanted to keep their text. But it's the 63% of graduate students who have to rent because they cannot afford to buy their books. That's where you're going to find the greatest number of students who need that material after they get out of school. They need access to this professionally, and they can't afford it. So there was a question, was the material used sufficiently in the class to warrant the cost? And about 8% of all student respondents, or about 9, said that they were told to purchase course materials that were never used. That's not a large number. Overall, you're probably going to have 10% of students kind of disaffected with buying textbooks anyway. But it's the almost 25% and more than 25% that were told to purchase material that was rarely used or only sometimes used. And overall, that means that about 62% of the material doesn't seem to be used in classes to an extent that students feel that it was worth the money. So what Grizzlies have to say, again, often I've avoided buying textbooks because they're too much to rent, and most teachers say the books are required, but I never need them. And that's a common theme that I see throughout this. I spend money on course material that isn't directly needed for class. I could be using that money for actual necessities. It feels like a hassle. I rarely buy materials because I don't use it and it's expensive. It feels like a hidden cost. A lot of these students are pretty frustrated with this when they don't feel that it's needed. I feel like that's how I've handled a couple textbook cost comments in the past is, wait, what? Okay. How much money did you spend on all course material this semester, fall of 23, whether that's renting or buying? About 87% of students paid between $51 and $500 for course materials. That's a pretty broad range. The 72% paid between $100 and $400. If the average course load is 4 classes, the largest segment of students, about 72%, were paying between $25 and $100 per course. In some ways, that doesn't seem too bad because, it's $25 for a textbook. The faculty's obviously done what they can to bring those costs down. But again, looking at it as on an individual basis, that I brought my books down to $25, but the students are still taking 4 or 5 courses, that's still over $100 in expenses. Now, contrary to popular belief that millennials and Gen Z just want things handed to them on a platter for free, I asked if textbook prices, oh, I skipped one. Oh dear, I seem to have a slide missing. Oh, I got ahead of myself, my apologies. What do you consider a reasonable price for materials per course? Our students do not expect free. Only a small portion of them say that they would like to see free materials. The largest segment feel that $26 to $50 is a reasonable price. But unfortunately, only about 40% report actually paying in that range. The other 60% are asked to pay more than that. So if textbook prices were not a problem, would you consider registering for more courses? Again, this gets to our retention and recruitment engagement buzzwords, that something like 50%, more than 50%, said that they would at least consider, yes, I would register, or hey, it depends on the subject, but I'm not averse to the idea. 50% more students enrolling in classes would be kind of huge, I think. The fact that only only 36% said that they were taking the max course load. We've really been encouraging students to up their course loads and take the max courses so that they can get through school sooner and graduate sooner and start their lives sooner. And only a third of our students are actually at that point where they can do that. Whether that's because of textbook costs or something else remains to be seen, but that is certainly a factor. Then I asked, how often do you skip paying for, whether that's buying or renting, required or recommended course materials? The always percentage of 6.5 isn't much, but added to the frequently and even sometimes, we're getting to almost 60% of students are not regularly purchasing their textbooks. They're refusing to shell out that money. We may say that it's money well spent, you should be doing this, but the fact of the matter is they aren't, and if we're going to meet them where they are, we've got to take that into consideration. The challenge here is that it's almost 43% of grad students, or those who always skip buying, are grad students. If you think about grad students going without course materials because they can't afford it or they don't feel that it's used enough, I think we need to consider what we're doing and what we might be doing wrong. This one was kind of a gut punch for me because it went up significantly from a previous semester when I asked, have you faced housing or food insecurity or experienced homelessness in the past 18 months? And we've got almost 30% of our students are saying yes to that question. And when you have almost a quarter of our students struggling to put food on the table and find a place to stay for the night, does that $50 textbook really feel as essential as we may make it out to be? You say it's essential to doing the homework. The homework platform is essential to getting through the class, but at what expense to the student? Both food and housing insecurity, there were 15 respondents. 26% of them are freshmen, incoming first-year students that have decided they are going to change their lives around and make their lives better and be here and get an education when they don't know if they have food on the table or a roof over their heads tonight. 53% of those are graduate students who are trying to get the best degree possible and get the best life for themselves started. And 53% of them don't know where their next meal's coming from, or if they're going to have something more than a friend's couch to crash on tonight. 41 respondents said they had food insecurity. 51% of those are undergraduates. 48%, almost half, are grad students. So we think that by the time you get a bachelor's, you've got life set, you're doing well, and you're doing the luxury of a graduate education. You must have money out the wazoo if you're paying for grad school. Not when 50% of our students are wondering where their next meal may be coming from. And housing insecurity, again, 43% are undergraduates, 57% are grad students that are crashing on their buddy's couch or staying somewhere short-term because they don't know where next month's rent is coming from. And what Grizzlies have to say on this one, education shouldn't have to cost my family dinner for the week. I've had to pass on groceries to buy books and additional class supplies. In the past, I've had to use money that was for groceries on course materials, whether that be books or sites, in order to do my homework. My children had to forego items for extracurricular activities due to the cost of materials. I'm a single mom with full custody. Buying textbooks required me to adjust the food budget and pick up a second job. So mom's working 2 jobs, taking care of the kids as a single parent, probably with minimal childcare support because that is a known issue here in the Valley, and trying to take classes to better her life and the lives of her children. I'm currently going without health insurance in order to help afford school while working 2 jobs and single parenting. Now, we may have what we consider the gold standard text in our field that's required reading because we think it conveys the best information to the students. But does it? Is that enough justification to say we're having anywhere from $25 to $200, $300 textbooks that are required reading, homework platforms that are basically pay to pass? I was told by a faculty here that in one of our departments, the homework platform was required and students were given zeros until they purchased it. When our students are going without health insurance And when they are going without food and their families are going without necessary supplies because of those homework platforms and textbook costs, I think it's time for a change. And I don't say that just because, oh, I like OER, they're cool. I say this because I'm working at Colorado's first Hispanic serving institution and a minority serving institution. And I believe in the mission of what we do here. And I offer to do a ton of the legwork. If you bring me a syllabus or a textbook that you've used previously, I will walk my fingers off online finding alternatives that are free to students or very low cost to students. And if there isn't anything out there, bring me your traditionally published textbook, and I will help digitize it, get it up online through Blackboard with some copyright protections offered by the library to help give the students access to that information free of cost. Because this has just reached a pretty critical point for our students. So I've got alternatives. There are more than just the traditional textbooks out there. The field is growing. There's new stuff added every day. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. This presentation was focused primarily on the impact to our students because that's what this survey was about. But I can also talk just as long about the impact and the positives that this can be for faculty, and the ways in which it can really serve your needs as well. So come and talk to me, reach out, and we'll find some way to help our students succeed.
Is it? Okay. Hi, everybody. If you want to stick around, we can do like a little Q&A if you have any questions. Any thoughts on your minds? You can just hang out for a little bit. I have a question. I'm curious how OER has, or what is the accessibility for OER? So are all of the textbooks through OER in audio format as well, and does that cost extra, or what do you feel is like the best part of accessibility with OER?
Basically, with accessibility in OER, the easiest thing to mention is that it doesn't have format limitations and restrictions. If you need larger print, we can do that. If you want print on demand and need print rather than digital, that's an option. It does take a little bit of searching. A lot of times it starts out in digital print format as a PDF or Word document or something like that, but those are usually editable and can be reformatted. DRMs that I mentioned earlier, the digital rights management, frequently block screen readers from working, whereas traditional OERs do not. So they can get audio through screen readers. And there are also things like the Colorado Talking Book Library, I believe, are less likely to balk at performing an audiobook version of an OER because the copyright infringement isn't there to present an issue. So OER can really help with a lot of accessibility challenges in various formats without an additional cost. A lot of students would prefer print. It may be easier to read, but print is more expensive than digital versions. So that's where, if you've got the reading disability, the print can be more expensive and cost prohibitive.
Great, thank you for answering that question. What I find working in the Office of Accessibility Services is that a lot of students are requesting audio forms of textbooks because of like dyslexia, even ADHD, any sort of like visual disability as well. Other questions? Oh, okay, go ahead.
And with the formatting difference, I know a lot of our students are commuters. They live at a distance. And so if they can do some kind of audio format to listen while they're on the road, that's another benefit to their time. They don't have to wait until they're home distracted driving to be on a tablet to read their homework.
And it also helps with anyone with a chronic medical condition. If they feel unwell, they can listen to the textbook rather than having to use a lot of like their physical energy to do so. Other questions?
Absolutely, I probably should have led with that. Open educational resources are openly licensed. It doesn't have to do with online or a format. It can be any format, any source. It's just openly licensed so people can reuse information. That's one of the other best things about this. If you find a textbook that has a whole bunch of white guys represented in the material, you can crop that image out and substitute it with any minority groups that you want to show do belong in this field. And so you can change images that way. You can rewrite the text to have a more socioeconomic focus on the San Luis Valley rather than the State University of New York's publication. Obviously very different demographics, different situation. You can rewrite the material to fit your classroom's specific needs.
Yes, what's your question?
Unfortunately, when the teachers say that that's required, that is what is required in those courses. That's where I'm really trying to reach the faculty at this point to say, please, please stop using those. There are open alternatives, but a lot of times the licenses that are signed with the textbook companies for things like inclusive access and homework platforms, they lost the word there. They forbid faculty from using alternatives. If the students do not use that one that's paid for, they fail the class. If the faculty want me to help find ancillaries like homework assignments and graded exams and things like that in OER, that's part of my main search. I will find alternatives to those kinds of things for you. But if the faculty have already decided that's what they're using, there is not really anything I can offer that would work, unfortunately.
Can OER help our online and our incarcerated student populations?
Yeah. Oh, awesome, thank you. There's a big heck yes to that. I've dealt with incarcerated students' families calling. I had one mother in tears. Her son's textbook was going to be over $350, and she said, I don't know how I'm going to afford that, but I have to get this material to him because the incarcerial facility will not allow used copies. They have to be brand new, and they have to be print because the students do not have online access and internet privileges. So yes, if the faculty who is teaching at these institutions is willing to use an OER, we can do print-on-demand versions for I got an American Library Association textbook in my field. Would have been $250 to buy through ALA. I found an OER version that was 13 and change for a print version. So I think $13 is a whole lot more reasonable for those students that need the print, for example, the incarcerated students, but who have the option of online as well.
Does the university offer refunds or reimbursements for returned books to be used for the next semester?
Question more for the bookstore. I'm not entirely sure. I know that sometimes the used textbook market can work. They do have used copies available to rent and buy. However, the homework platforms and those codes do not allow for used copies. So if there's a homework platform associated with the class, you cannot buy a used copy of the book. You have to get a new copy and you have to have that brand new code. So for students seeking to take their textbooks back to the bookstore, maybe, maybe not. And only if you got print, nothing online can ever be returned that way. Again, unfortunately.
I was wondering if the incarcerated students, are they allowed to share the textbooks? So they get a group, maybe they can use one textbook?
It would probably depend on the rules at their institution. It would, a lot of it depends on what the prison or facility will allow. There's a possibility, I know they have some with pretty robust libraries. If the library controls the copy and students come into that room to do the readings, very likely yes. But whether that institution's library would pay for the text or whether the students would have to work together with their minimal funds to come up with that cost and the hassle of that would be a whole other can of worms to open there.
So I have a quick question about how we can encourage faculty to maybe reach out to you, because a lot of faculty just kind of copy and paste their products for the classes. So how can we encourage those faculty members to make these kinds of changes?
Very directly. I would ask, is there an open version of this? Is there a free version of this out there? Have you checked with the library? Have you asked around to see if there are other versions that are less expensive for us? Vote with your wallet. We're working, the Colorado Department of Higher Ed has mandated that we need to have course prices listed in the course calendar for fall of '24. Hasn't gone into effect yet. But once that's listed, if you can check and see if there are different sections of the same course, one has an OER, one has a $200 textbook. That's a real example from a past class. Vote with your wallet and register for the one that has the free textbook. And when they realize that, one section has 30 students signed up, the other section has 2, what's the difference? Where is this coming from? Start to evaluate on their end as well. But yes, be direct and ask, have you talked to the library about an open version of this? Because I'm more than happy if people bring me their syllabi or any course materials, just an email with their previous textbook, I will find as many alternatives as I can through all the different channels that I have, listservs, anything. I will help find those. So I'm not just going to hand faculty, hey, here's some resources, go check it out, go do it yourself. I'll curate a list of here's some things that I think may fit.
So in many ways, it seems almost like a no-brainer. OERs would be a good thing to do. But in your talking with faculty so far, what have been some of the stumbling blocks they've been sharing with you as to why they aren't moving in this direction?
One of the biggest things is the availability of ancillaries and or the fact that it's, the textbook companies are basically marketing a lingerie catalog to the faculty. It is seductive as all get out and saying, look how gorgeous and sexy this is. You don't have to do any work. We're doing pretty much all of it for you. And you don't even have to pay for anything, because the cost rolls downhill and it's the students who pay. So it's the fact that there are PowerPoint presentations already built, the slides are already developed, the graphics for the slides are included in folders that they can build their own presentations if they don't want to use the pre-developed one, but they've got all the graphics from the textbook. They have assignments and whole banks of questions and answers that the faculty can choose from to build their own assignments or pre-built assignments, tests and quizzes, everything's answered through the homework platform. All of it's graded automatically. It can link into Blackboard from some of it. And it's just basically the faculty can hit play and step back from these classes, and the students are the ones who are teaching themselves the material from the slides and things like that. And so it's easy and it's seductive when faculty are overworked and have a huge course load. That may be the best option available to find those kinds of easy outs. But I do like to really stress, especially in the conversations I have with faculty, that yes, there is a little bit more upfront work to build your class to begin with, but you have more control over it. Again, that example of a whole room full of white guys pictured in lab coats for a science text. This gives you the opportunity to say, no, there are Hispanic and Latinx people, there are black and brown people, there are, people who don't appear to be gender binary that belong in the STEM fields in science. And so you can edit those to make your students feel more included in a way that the traditional textbooks may or may not be doing.
Anyone else? Okay, cool. All right, well, Anything else you want to say, Amanda?
Yep, one more question in the back there.
All right, I'll come right over.
So that was a great point. So can the professor use those resources but not require the textbook that is used, but pull out snippets of it?
Probably, yeah. I think that a lot of times the textbook companies will send a free copy to the faculty to try and tempt them in, but they don't have to assign it as forwarding the cost onto the students. They can use it, and that's where I say bring in your copy of the text as the faculty and let me scan and digitize some of the parts that are going to be used to help get that up in Blackboard for you to use, but not necessarily pass on the cost.
They could still use those resources provided by whatever textbook company and then still write their own textbook that may be required online, whatever.
The challenge is if you're using copyrighted material that's coming from the textbook company, rewriting that is not typically permitted. So if you're going to do a rewrite, it has to already be openly licensed, whereas if there's a copyright, you can't rewrite. But if you find something with OER that is cool but not quite what you're looking for, that's when you can do a lot of the rewrites.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. And I hope you have a great rest of your Monday. Amanda is around, second floor of the library, if you have any questions or want to talk further about this. And we do have an event on Wednesday. Please come. It'll be amazing. And that's all. Have a great day.
Thank you.